Hi, welcome to Vanished Voices. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Shannon.
For today's episode, we wanted to share something special with our Vanished Voices audience. This week, we're doing a crossover with our sister show, Crime Clueless. If you enjoy the deep research and advocacy here on Vanished Voices, Crime Clueless takes that same heart and detail, the same deep research and advocacy, but adds in a conversational approach using co-hosts who are new to true crime. The cases are brand new and their questions bring up things that maybe we haven't thought of before. We look at it with a fresh approach to cases that everyone knows and also the ones that barely made headlines, which has always been something I found important. The case we're sharing today, the murder of Robin Lawrence from Springfield, Virginia, was originally released on Crime Clueless in January 2025. There's a reason that I chose this one specifically for crossover week. Robin's case did not receive much media attention at the time, which is exactly the kind of silence we call out and challenge here on Vanished Voices. But it also represents something we don't always get to talk about in the Vanished Voices cases that we choose to cover. Hope. Hope for families who have waited years, even decades, without answers. Hope that advancements in DNA technology can finally bring justice where the system once failed. Robin's story is a powerful reminder that even when it feels like nothing is happening, progress can still be made. Since our original release, the man responsible, Stephen Smirk, has been sentenced to 70 years in prison. And while that doesn't undo the pain, it does represent the justice that Robin deserved. If you connect with this episode and want more storytelling in our Crime Clueless tone, you can find Crime Clueless on every streaming platform or directly at crimeclueless.com. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you next week with a brand new case. Now, let's begin. Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Laura.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Kayla.
Kayla's sick today, but she was willing to join us virtually and hear this case and give us her expert opinions.
And amazing insight. Kayla always has the best questions.
She does. So we're glad that she's willing to join us, even though she's a little bit miserable.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully next time I'm feeling better and can be there in person.
I hope so too. The case we have today is solved.
Yay!
Yep. There's always questions, but it's the least amount of leaving you hanging that we have done so far.
That will be nice. It'll be nice for me.
Yes.
Finally. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Should we dive right in?
Yep, let's get started.
Let's do it.
The house was eerily still when the police arrived, the kind of quiet that sinks into your bones and leaves you uneasy. Inside, the scene told a story far darker than anyone could have imagined, a story of violence and heartbreak, wrapped in layers of questions with no easy answers. Robin Lawrence's life had been full of promise, but in a single moment, it was shattered. What happened inside that suburban home on a cold November evening? And why, nearly 3 decades later, is her story just being solved? Today, we'll pull back the layers of a case that has haunted Virginia for years. Today's episode takes us to Springfield, Virginia, a city where life usually hums with Southern charm and a sense of security. But on one November evening in 1994, that sense of safety was ripped away. Robin Lawrence's case is one that resonates not just because of its tragedy, but because of its haunting questions. Who would want to harm a woman like Robin? Stick with us as we peel back the layers on this case, one chilling detail at a time. Before that fateful night in November 1994, Robin Lawrence was a woman full of love and life, Born on May 7th, 1957, Robin grew up in a small, close-knit town in Virginia, surrounded by family and friends who admired her vibrant personality and artistic talents. From an early age, Robin had a natural creativity that she carried with her throughout her life, turning even the mundane into something beautiful. In her early 20s, Robin met and married Jerry Lawrence. Their union was filled with love and shared dreams, and soon their family grew with the arrival of their daughter. Robin embraced motherhood with her whole heart, pouring her energy into creating a home filled with warmth, encouragement, and joy. The family settled in Richmond, where Robin quickly became a beloved figure in the community. Neighbors remember her as the one who always had a warm smile and a kind word. She was like the unofficial mayor of the street, one neighbor joked. If you needed anything, sugar, a shoulder to cry on, or just someone to chat with, Robin was always there. Robin balanced her responsibilities as a mother and wife with her passion for art. She often spent her evenings sketching or painting, her daughter playing beside her. On the weekends, she would take her daughter to local art exhibits, encouraging her to see the world through the lens of creativity. She had this laugh, another friend shared. It could fill a room. It didn't matter what kind of day you were having. If Robin laughed, you couldn't help but smile. Robin's life was a tapestry of love and creativity, woven with the simple joys she cherished. But tragically, that tapestry was ripped apart in a way no one could have anticipated. This case is one that I have not seen covered anywhere. I haven't been able to find any podcast or anything that has covered it. And the research was more challenging than some of the others. I had to do a deep dive into newspaper archives and things like that to see more about who Robin was and what happened to her.
What did you hear about this case then, Jenna?
I found it just looking for ones that had been solved recently using DNA analysis. I think those are fascinating. I don't know why hers just stuck with me once I read just the basic summary about it. I just thought that was interesting that I couldn't find
more
Yep.
information.
It was a quiet Sunday evening, November 20th, 1994. It was the kind of evening where the neighborhood lights flicker on early and the streets are calm. Families settle in for a peaceful night. At Robin's house, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Inside her cozy home, the warmth she worked so hard to create should have provided safety, a haven from the outside world. But that night, something went terribly wrong. Robin's husband was on an overseas work trip. He became concerned when he was unable to reach Robin and asked a neighbor to stop by the house. What they found was a scene of horror that no one was prepared for. Robin had been brutally murdered in her own home, a place that should have been her sanctuary. Details from the scene were both chilling and puzzling. Robin was discovered in her bedroom, a victim of a vicious attack. The cause of death was later determined to be blunt force trauma and stab wounds. There were no immediate signs of forced entry, which raised questions about whether Robin might have known her killer or if the person had found another way inside. Her 2-year-old daughter was found inside the home, dehydrated but otherwise unharmed. The thought that Robin's killer may have left her child alive raised haunting questions. Was it deliberate? Was it meant to send a message? Nobody could really determine why that had happened. As police combed through the house and the surrounding areas, the questions began to pile up. Who would want to harm Robin and why? And how could someone carry out such a violent act without being seen or heard in such a quiet suburban neighborhood? Neighbors recalled hearing nothing unusual that night. No screams, no shouts, no signs of struggle. The silence of it all was unnerving. It's like the house just swallowed the whole thing up, one neighbor later remarked. You'd think something like that would echo down the street, but it didn't. The crime scene was examined meticulously, but the trail was frustratingly cold. No obvious fingerprints, some DNA evidence, but nothing definitive. Just a senseless, violent act that left the community in shock and her family shattered.
Well, that's so sad that her daughter was there.
It's so sad. And she had to grow up without her mom.
I know. And knowing that happened and she was there, awful.
Also, her left alone. I don't know.
I know.
Yep.
Ugh.
That was scary because she was so little. I mean, she wouldn't understand.
Right.
Calling for her mom and
no one coming.
No one come. That's so sad. It's so scary.
So sad.
I know why you wanted to do this one. You said birthday dates stand out to you. November 20th.
Yep. Oh. When news of Robin Lawrence's brutal murder broke, Richmond police launched a full-scale investigation, determined to find the person responsible for such a horrific act. However, from the onset, the case was anything but straightforward. Forensic teams combed through the house, searching for anything that could identify the killer, yet the scene yielded surprisingly little. Like I said, there were no obvious signs of forced entry, no valuables missing, and no clear evidence left behind by the perpetrator. The absence of physical clues left investigators grappling with more questions than answers. The few pieces of trace evidence they did find, a hair and several fibers, were carefully preserved, but at the time, forensic technology was limited, and these clues didn't immediately lead to any suspects. The murder weapon was also missing. The autopsy revealed that Robin had been stabbed multiple times with a knife and suffered blunt force trauma, likely from a heavy object, and they theorized it was perhaps a hammer. However, no weapon was found at the scene. Detectives worked to piece together Robin's final hours. She had last been seen alive the evening before around 7 p.m. when she spoke with a close friend on the phone. Her tone had been cheerful, and there was nothing in the conversation to suggest she was in danger. Her 2-year-old daughter, found unharmed but dehydrated, added complexity. Authorities determined the child had been left alone for several hours after Robin's murder, though they couldn't pinpoint the exact time of the attack. The investigation, like it usually does, began with those closest to Robin. Jerry Lawrence, Robin's husband, though separated from Robin, had remained part of her life and was the first person detectives turned to. Jerry's alibi placed him out of the country on the night of the murder, a claim confirmed by multiple witnesses and travel records. To eliminate any doubt, Jerry voluntarily took a polygraph test, which he passed.
So they were separated, you said?
I've seen different reports, but most of them say that they were separated at the time,
Okay.
but not necessarily heading for divorce, but he was spending more time apart, and he traveled for work a lot.
And he was overseas at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So were they saying like he was separated
Possibly.
just from her at that time?
Geographically, possibly. Like I said, the resources are just slim.
Okay.
But multiple sources did say separated.
Okay.
And it made it sound like separated marriage.
Okay. But not divorced.
Right.
Okay.
Detectives interviewed dozens of people who had been part of Robin's life, her friends, neighbors, coworkers. Her friends described her as kind and well-loved with no known enemies. One neighbor recalled seeing an unfamiliar car parked nearby the evening before, but that lead didn't pan out. A coworker mentioned that Robin had seemed distracted in the days before her death, though they couldn't recall anything specific. Another friend told investigators that Robin had recently expressed mild concern about an unfamiliar man she'd seen in the neighborhood, but she hadn't elaborated. Several individuals agreed to take polygraph tests during the investigation, but none raised any red flags. Detectives found themselves stuck in a cycle of promising leads that fizzled out under increased scrutiny. The lack of forced entry raised the possibility that Robin knew her killer and had willingly let them in. But if that were the case, who could it have been? The overkill suggested rage, but no one in Robin's circle fit the profile of someone capable of such violence. The possibility of a random attack was also considered, but it came with its own mysteries. Why would someone with no connection to Robin commit such a brutal crime and then leave the child behind? And how could they have escaped without leaving more evidence? It's one of those cases that keeps you awake at night, a retired detective later reflected. Every theory we came up with just led to more questions. As the weeks turned into months, detectives began to theorize about what could have led to Robin's death. The possibilities, like we said, ranged from deeply personal to disturbingly random, each one raising new concerns. The brutality of the crime, like we said, suggested it was personal. She had multiple stab wounds, which often indicates rage, leading investigators to focus on people that Robin might have had conflicts with. However, her friends and family really couldn't identify anyone who could fit the profile of a vengeful attacker. If the killer didn't know Robin, the attack may have been a crime of opportunity. The lack of forced entry suggested the perpetrator could have found an unlocked door or window, but this raised its own unsettling questions. If it was a random attacker committing this brutal crime, then why leave the child unharmed? The idea that Robin knew her killer was perhaps the most troubling. If she willingly let someone into her home, it meant she trusted the person enough to open her door only to be betrayed. This theory gained traction, given the lack of forced entry, but no suspect ever emerged.
That's so scary.
It's
I
so
know.
scary.
I hate that, especially thinking like if it was a random person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking with Brandon about this, and, there's a lot of things that he does around the house that I don't do. I'm wondering if her husband usually went through and locked the doors at night.
Maybe.
And he went on his work trip. He could have left that same day. I'm not sure. Maybe he's the one that locked it and she just wasn't in the habit of getting up and making sure everything was locked.
Maybe. How scary for her neighbors too.
Yeah.
Right. Because the possibility that it's random
Yeah.
is horrifying, because
And they can't
what
find
if they
somebody?
come back? Right.
Yeah, they can't find somebody. They don't have any suspects.
Yes.
Now this person could be in their neighborhood again. Maybe
Right.
they live in the neighborhood. Like, oh,
Or they live in the neighborhood. That's so,
Yeah, even thinking that it is your neighbor. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
scary.
that's really unsettling.
so if it is a neighbor and they just stop by,
She would let them in. Maybe they asked for sugar, like they said.
yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like either possibility.
Nope.
The absence of any real forensic evidence and the missing murder weapons led some to speculate the killer might have been unusually careful or even skilled. However, the overkill didn't align with a calculated professional hit. This left detectives torn between the idea of a crime of passion or one that was meticulously planned. It's essentially both, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no box you can put this case into, one detective remarked. Every piece of the puzzle seems to contradict the last. By the end of 1994, so that would be about 6 weeks later, the investigation into Robin's murder had reached a frustrating standstill. Despite the initial flurry of activity, the interviews, trying to do forensic analysis, community outreach, detectives had no suspects, no motive, and little evidence to guide them. While investigators had collected a few pieces of trace evidence, they just didn't have the technology that could provide them with a breakthrough. We had the evidence, one detective later recalled, but we didn't have the ability to do much with it back then. The evidence was preserved in the hope that advancements in forensic science would one day offer new leads. But for the time being, it was as if the killer had vanished into thin air. The Richmond community was shocked by the crime. The local media covered the case extensively in the early days. Headlines focused on the senseless nature of the murder and the haunting detail of Robin's 2-year-old daughter being left alive but alone. Who killed Robin Lawrence was a recurring theme in local papers, with journalists speculating about everything from a jealous acquaintance to a random intruder. The case even inspired amateur sleuths to propose their own theories, although none provided actionable leads. This wasn't just a story, it was a nightmare, one journalist wrote. A young mother taken from her daughter, her family, her friends, and no one could explain why. Robin's death left a lasting scar in the neighborhood. For months after the murder, neighbors reported feeling uneasy, locking their doors and windows in a community that had rarely worried about crime. I didn't sleep for weeks, a neighbor admitted in a 1995 interview. If something like this could happen to Robin, it could happen to any of us. Vigils were held in Robin's memory, with family, friends, and neighbors gathering to honor her life and pray for justice. Her daughter, too young to understand the loss, was cared for by family members who vowed to keep Robin's memory alive.
I think I would have to move if I lived in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, that would be shattering for all your normalcy and everything you thought.
Absolutely. Well, and you were saying, after this happened, it was causing people to lock their doors and windows. So maybe, as we've talked about in other cases too, maybe that isn't something that they normally did.
It's entirely possible.
Maybe it's something you do right before bed. But
Right.
if it had happened earlier in the evening before she was going to bed, and maybe it was later, but maybe she didn't lock.
And maybe it's something they don't even think about. Because, I mean, if you live in a small town where crime doesn't happen, I mean, most people, that's not something they think about. In college, it was such a small town. My roommate, she never even locked her car door. She said, if stuff like that isn't happening around you very often, then maybe it's not something you even think about.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And like we talked about in Nancy's case, if you're not used to it, you didn't grow up with it,
Yeah, when I was in college, there were times where we wouldn't lock our door. I woke up one time and the door was wide open.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, why did we ever do that? That's so dumb.
Yeah, I woke up one time. Krista and I lived in the same apartment complex, but at different times. But the one we lived in, everybody just kind of had open door policy. Everybody was just coming in and out all the time. And I remember one time I came out and one of my guy neighbors was sleeping on our couch, and he just came in the middle of the night because his roommates were being loud. And like looking back at that now, I mean, I trusted everybody in there, but anybody could have just walked in.
Yeah.
That's definitely a not today club rule, right? Lock the doors. We don't have people we don't know. You think you know everyone so well, especially in college, everyone
is friends.
Yeah, and they're all in the same stage of life and everything. But yeah.
But anybody could walk in. Yeah.
Right. Especially with those unlocked doors. Lock your doors.
Yep.
And during the day too. I mean, more break-ins happen during the day than at night.
Mm-hmm.
Keep those doors and windows locked.
Yep. I hate when I come out of my office, I'm working and the front door's unlocked. I'm like, oh, who did that?
Oh my gosh, yes.
How long has it been unlocked? Yes.
Right.
Well, and like my door too, if you don't push it closed, it can open. And so like my daughter, she'll go out and get a package or something. And I'm like, okay, for one, don't go out and get a package without me telling you or if I'm out there. So we did have a talk about that. Don't go outside while mom's working.
Yes.
Without me.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll come back in and won't lock the door.
Right.
Having those conversations, make sure you lock the door.
Yep. Even when they're young.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, as time passed, these unanswered questions surrounding the case grew heavier. Who would want to harm Robin? How had the killer managed to leave behind so little evidence? And what did the presence of her unharmed daughter mean in the larger context of this crime? We thought we'd get the break we needed, one retired detective said years later, but it just never came. Every lead hit a dead end. While the trial had gone cold, the case was never officially closed. Detectives continued to revisit the evidence, hoping that time, technology, or a confession would eventually lead to answers. In 1994, forensic science was still in its infancy. Investigators at the time relied heavily on blood typing and rudimentary DNA analysis, which were often inconclusive in solving complex cases. However, they demonstrated remarkable foresight by meticulously preserving every piece of evidence from Robin's crime scene. The single hair, the fibers, the trace material at the time offered no clear leads. By the early 2000s, forensic technology had taken significant strides forward. DNA testing became more precise, and investigators revisited the evidence from Robin's case, hopeful that advancements would reveal new clues. Yet, it wasn't until the rise of genetic genealogy in the late 2010s that science finally caught up with their hopes. The groundbreaking technique, combining DNA analysis with genealogy databases, transformed the field of criminal investigations. We always knew that someday the technology would be there, one of the retired detectives remarked. The key was to ensure that the evidence was ready when the day came.
I love hearing about all these cases that are solved with technology advancements.
Me too.
It's so cool to see. It gives me so much hope for all these families for what else is coming because we're not done.
No.
Advancing technology. More is coming.
Even in the last couple of years, they can tell if the material that they found with the DNA or whatever came from a muscle or came from your liver, or they can really specify exactly where it came from, which is just in the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's going to be so many cases that are solved, and that I hope for all these other families that have cold cases.
Me too.
Hopefully any evidence is preserved like it was in these other cases we've been talking about, so that theirs can be solved too when the technology gets there for them.
I hope so.
Yeah, I was going to say, I also really love the foresight of these detectives, just knowing that one day it would be solved, just not today.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so great, because they could have just been like, oh, we can't get anything from this and gotten rid of it. Or, they have so much that they're preserving as well. After a certain amount of time, they could get rid of evidence.
Yep.
Right. Or it could degrade to where it's not as useful if it's not stored properly.
Yeah, exactly.
One forensic specialist said it's not just about solving the case, it's about giving Robin's family the closure they deserve. Over the years, the case faded from public attention. Robin's loved ones continued to carry the weight of her loss. Her daughter grew up without her mother, shielded from many of the details, but always aware of the void in her life. We try to focus on the good memories a family member shared in a rare public statement, but it's hard not to think about the questions that still haven't been answered. Robin's story is one that lingers. It's not just the brutality of the crime, but the sheer lack of answers. As we move forward in this episode, we'll examine how new technology and fresh perspectives bring closure to this case and bring justice for Robin. For nearly 3 decades, Robin's family and friends held on to the hope that justice would one day be served. The investigation, which had stalled in the late 1990s, was brought back into the spotlight in 2019 when Fairfax County detectives decided to re-examine the case. Advances in forensic science and the growing focus on solving cold cases breathed new life into Robin's story. The preserved evidence, meticulously stored for decades, was sent to Parabon Nanolabs.
Oh, Parabon.
Parabon, yay.
They're stars.
They are. They are the leader in DNA technology. And they're actually based in Virginia, which is where this case happened.
Oh, yeah.
Among the items analyzed were fibers and a hair found at the crime scene, which had been preserved meticulously. Using cutting-edge techniques, Parabon applied genetic genealogy, the method that matches crime scene DNA with publicly available genealogy databases to trace potential relatives to the suspect. And like we've mentioned, it's the groundbreaking approach that helps solve the Golden State Killer case. Genetic genealogy isn't just about finding one person, a forensic expert on the team explained. It's about building a family tree and following the branches until you find the right connection. As detectives worked with Parabon to construct this family tree, one name began to stand out: Stephen Smirk. Once Stephen Smirk emerged as a potential suspect, investigators began digging into his background. Smirk, a former Army employee, had no connection to Robin, which initially raised questions about the accuracy of the genealogy findings. To confirm their suspicions, detectives compared the digital composite images generated from the DNA to photographs of Smirk taken in 1988 and 1998. The resemblance is striking. I need to show you guys a picture of this because it looks just like him.
Wow.
Okay, so here's the picture that Parabon created.
Oh, wow.
And then the two, one from 1988 and one from 1998.
That is crazy.
That is crazy.
It looks just like him.
Mm-hmm. Even like the hair looks similar. It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
Sorry, Kayla, you can't see.
I know. Oh, I should text it to you.
No, that's okay. I'll just have to go to our website after the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. The resemblance is striking. It further cemented his place as their primary suspect. It was one of those moments where everything clicked. A detective recalled, we had the DNA, we had the genealogy, and now we had a face to match it. But investigators knew they needed more. In September 2023, they traveled to Niskayuna, New York, where Smirk had been living a quiet, unassuming life. What they didn't know was how their encounter with him would unfold.
That sounds daunting.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about how they did the DNA and how they did the profile that led them to Stephen Smirk. The DNA, they ran it through CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System, and investigators really thought that for somebody to have committed this crime and how violent it was, that they would have committed more crimes. And they were really shocked when they got no hits in CODIS. Parabon had that whole DNA profile. They uploaded it to GEDmatch. They compared it to the DNA profiles to find potential relatives based on their shared genetic markers. Through this process, Parabon identified distant relatives of the suspect, third and fourth cousins, whose DNA partially matched the crime scene sample. From there, the work of building a family tree began. Investigators painstakingly traced the branches of these families using historical records, obituaries, and public documents to connect the dots. Over time, they were able to narrow their focus to a single family line that led them to Smirk. It's like solving a giant puzzle, a genetic genealogist explained. Every piece of information, no matter how small, helps us see the bigger picture. With this evidence, detectives finally had the confirmation they needed to confront Smirk. Once Stephen Smirk's name emerged as a potential suspect, detectives began meticulously cross-referencing his background with the details of Robin's murder. It was a delicate process connecting fragments of evidence to build a case strong enough to hold up under scrutiny. At first glance, Smirk seemed like an unlikely candidate. A former Army service member, he had lived a quiet life in Niskayuna, New York, far removed from the public eye. Yet his age, military background, and proximity to the crime scene in 1994 all aligned with what investigators knew. Each detail brought them closer to the truth, but there was still one key element missing: a direct DNA sample to confirm their suspicions. Detectives made their move in September 2023. Armed with the findings from genetic genealogy and a warrant, they approached Smirk at his home. It was a pivotal moment in an investigation spanning nearly 30 years. Would he cooperate, or would he shut the door on their quest for justice? When detectives knocked on Stephen Smirk's door in Niskayuna, New York, nearly 3 decades after Robin Lawrence's murder, they were prepared for resistance or denial. What they encountered instead was a man who seemed almost resigned, as though he had been waiting for this moment. Stephen Smirk was polite and cooperative when he answered the door, a stark contrast to the horrific crime he would soon admit to. Detectives explained that they were reopening the case and wanted to ask him a few questions. Without hesitation, Smirk agreed to speak with them. As the conversation unfolded, detectives presented Smirk with their findings from the genetic genealogy investigation. They explained how advances in DNA technology had led them to him and how his profile matched evidence found at the crime scene. Smirk didn't flinch. Instead, he asked one simple question: "What do you want to know?" The detectives suggested that he provide a DNA sample to confirm their findings. Smirk agreed without hesitation, calmly swabbing the inside of his cheek and handing the sample back to them. But before the test results could even confirm what they already suspected, Smirk began to talk. He didn't just confess, one investigator later recounted. He unburdened himself. It was chilling how matter-of-fact he was about it. Smirk described the events of November 20th, 1994 in meticulous detail. He admitted that he had left his army base that night with a single goal: to kill someone. He didn't know Robin Lawrence, nor did he have any connection to her.
Oh my gosh.
It's so horrifying.
That's horrifying.
She was,
Yes.
as he put it, a target of opportunity. He told detectives how he walked through the quiet Richmond neighborhood, scanning homes for one that appeared vulnerable. When he reached Robin's house, he noticed a sliding glass door that wasn't fully secured. He slipped inside and made his way to the bedroom where Robin was. "I knew I was going to do it," Smirk said. There was no turning back. He attacked Robin with a level of brutality that left seasoned investigators speechless. He admitted to stabbing her repeatedly and striking her with a blunt object. In the other room, Robin's 2-year-old daughter slept through the chaos. Smirk claimed he never intended to harm the child, though he never offered an explanation as to why. When asked why he chose to kill that night, Smirk's response was as chilling as his actions. "I don't have a reason," he said. "I just knew I wanted to kill someone. If I hadn't have gotten married and then had kids, I probably would be a serial killer."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is scarier to me than like her knowing somebody. I would much rather it was someone that
So
knew her and she
creepy.
had like a conflict with or something than just this random person looking to kill someone. That is horrifying.
And it could have been anyone in that neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And
Could have been anybody. That's so sad. Did he know her daughter was in there then? If
it sounds like it, because he didn't know what house he was walking into. He didn't know if there were going to be 10 people there. He, just went in blind.
did he have the weapon on him that he used then already, or did he take something from her house?
No, it sounds like he had it on him.
Okay.
Yeah, he just set out with the intention of killing someone. I can't understand that.
Gosh.
Mm-mm. And I was trying to dig deeper into this case, and there's only one Reddit post on it, which came last year when it was solved. But there was someone on there who, and this is fourth hand or whatever, but She said that her husband was friends with him when he was at the military base and everyone loved him. And she said she always got like the worst vibes and eventually banned him from her house. She didn't like how he talked about women and just kind of the crude language that he would use.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when she saw this, she was
like, oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because everyone else loved him. So she started to think that she was wrong. Like her gut.
I think you should always trust your gut about people. I feel like that's happened to me before. There was someone that we knew growing up, and then I always had a bad feeling about them. And then I found out some things that they did, and I was like, yeah, I can see that from that person. And I never said anything before.
Right. Just a little bit on your guard.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And it wasn't something like this.
Right.
It was, I don't know, I think you just have to trust your instincts about people for sure.
I agree.
Honestly, I'd rather feel that and be cautious about it than ignore it.
Yeah.
And be wrong. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So Smirk's confession painted a picture of someone deeply disturbed who planned the attack with cold precision, but spoke about it with detachment. His demeanor during the confession was described as calm, almost unnervingly so. It was like he was talking to someone else, a detective noted. There was no remorse, no emotion, just facts. Before the detectives left, Smirk made one final statement that stuck with them. I always knew you'd find me someday, he said. I just didn't think it would take this long.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so lock your doors. Have an alarm system.
Yes. So this confession marked the culmination of decades of investigative work, bringing answers to a case that had haunted Robin's family and the Richmond community for years. For those who sat across from Smirk that day, it also left them grappling with the darkness of his actions and the chilling randomness of his crime. What happened next would confirm everything investigators had worked towards. The forensic analysis got to work immediately comparing Smirk's DNA to the genetic profile created from the crime scene evidence decades later. The results were definitive, a conclusive match. It wasn't just a match, it was definitive, one investigator later recalled. The DNA tied him to the scene without any room for doubt. For the detectives who worked tirelessly on Robin's case, the decades-long pursuit of justice was both a professional mission and a personal crusade. Many recalled the initial frustration of hitting dead ends as each promising lead fizzled out under scrutiny. You'd work 12-hour days chasing something that seemed like a sure thing, only to find yourself back at square one investigator admitted. But you don't forget cases like this. You carry them with you. Another detective, who was retired, spoke about keeping Robin's case file on his desk long after it had gone cold. It was a reminder to never stop trying, he said. Her story deserved an ending, and her family deserved answers.
When did he get married after this? Was it like soon after? Do you know?
I am not exactly sure. I know that he has 2 kids that are both in high school.
Okay.
So my guess is...
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if he committed... I guess he probably would have confessed since they already had him if he committed any other crimes, if that was his frame of mind. If I hadn't got married, I would be a serial killer.
Right. And so for him to have continued, without doing anything else.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering how long it was after this that he did get married and decide to not kill people anymore. You know, I don't know. How horrible for his
family. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's so tragic to lose your dad.
Yeah. And just have a whole new look at him.
Yes. Everything you thought you knew.
Everything would change in your mind.
Especially off that quote.
Yeah.
Because he had like no remorse for it or any, I don't know.
No.
It's like, well, I knew you would find me, but it took a lot longer than I thought. Like, that's so terrifying.
And I kind of wonder why he made that comment. Like, I always knew you'd find me.
Yeah.
Just because you respect, detectives, investigators, you thought somehow they'd track you down, I guess.
Maybe he had heard about it. Maybe he knew that they had found something at the scene?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't see anything about whether they had kept that under wraps or not.
Yeah, so maybe that was somehow known.
Could be. He might have known people in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And heard things.
Oh,
Yeah. When genetic genealogy finally provided this breakthrough, many of the original detectives were no longer working on the force. But their foundational work, from interviewing witnesses to preserving evidence, was what made the resolution possible. It's a team effort, another detective reflected. Every piece of the puzzle, no matter how small, mattered, and in the end, it all came together. Following his shocking confession, Stephen Smirk was swiftly arrested and charged with second-degree murder. For nearly 3 decades, Robin's case had remained cold, haunting mystery. Now, with the confession and the undeniable DNA evidence, the case moved rapidly through the legal system, finally offering a glimmer of justice to her grieving family.
it does make me wonder if he committed any other crimes.
Me too.
And
Now his DNA is in CODIS, though, so
there,
mhm.
I wonder if going forward they'll connect him to anything else.
Yes, this is one of my new Google alerts as well, because I feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, you don't just feel like that and then
Mhm.
keep going and not do anything else, right? I mean, maybe you do.
I don't
know.
know.
I don't know if it's psychopath or what the word is.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like he is actually a psychopath. He did this premeditated. He could just kind of separate his feelings from it. Maybe he just decided, you know what? I did it once. I'm married now. I have kids. Like I won't be doing this again.
Right, and not the impulse that you see
Yes, yeah.
sometimes. Mhm.
Definitely with that lack of remorse and
Mhm.
guilt. I think that does fall under that category.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Smirk now faces a potential sentence of up to 70 years in prison. His sentencing date is set for March 7th, 2025, which is a beacon of closure for Robin's loved ones. It represents not just the culmination of her case in the legal sense, but the emotional relief of knowing the man responsible will be held accountable. For the first time in almost 30 years, we can breathe again, a family member said after the guilty plea. We can finally begin to heal. This moment in court wasn't just about convicting Stephen Smirk, it was a testament to the persistence of law enforcement, the advances in forensic technology, and the unwavering determination of a family that refused to let Robin's story fade into obscurity. On October 4th, 2024, Stephen Smirk entered the courtroom, his demeanor as calm and unsettling as ever, to plead guilty to first-degree murder. His plea spared Robin's family the prolonged agony of a trial, but the details revealed during the hearing painted a chilling portrait of a man capable of unimaginable brutality. In his videotaped confession, Smirk recounted the events of that fateful November night in 1994. He admitted that he had been drinking and taking pills when an overwhelming urge to kill overtook him. Leaving his army base, he wandered into Robin's quiet neighborhood, scanning homes until one caught his attention. He noticed the sliding glass door, like we said, offering easy access. Then he said, "I cut her up pretty good." He stated that without emotion, his detached words echoing in the courtroom. He described his attack on Robin with clinical precision, detailing how he had stabbed her repeatedly and struck her with the blunt object. Yet, when asked why he spared Robin's 2-year-old daughter, who was sleeping in another room, Smirk provided no real explanation. "She wasn't my target," he said simply, as though that absolved him of further cruelty. His remarks during the confession revealed a deeply disturbed psyche. "If I hadn't have gotten married," Smirk admitted, "I probably would be a serial killer." His eerie calmness as he recounted his crime left those in the courtroom grappling with a mix of relief and horror. The courtroom was a somber space as Robin's family listened to the grim details of her final moments. For nearly 3 decades, they had waited for these answers, but hearing the full truth was a new source of pain. Her sister, Mary, reflected on the experience with mixed emotions. "We're grateful he's finally being held accountable, but it's hard to understand how someone could be so heartless," she said, her voice steady but laced with sadness. Robin's niece, Lauren, spoke more bluntly about Smirk, describing him as a man who doesn't have a soul. She added, "He robbed us of so much, and he showed no remorse. That's what's hardest to accept." For Robin's family, the guilty plea marked the end of their long journey. It provided a sense of closure, but could never ease the pain of her loss. Robin's story and the long fight for answers left a mark on all who knew about it. For her family, her friends, and her community, the resolution, not just an end, but a testament to the enduring power of hope and determination. And that's the case of Robin Lawrence.
That was a terrifying case, Jenna.
I'm sorry.
It's scary to think that there's people who are like that and just walking among us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like in Nancy's case, he went on to be a lawyer. How many people did he sit with and interrogate and defend, prosecute? And then in this case, just
on to have a family and live his life and
doing the dad things, doing the husband things. And
I mean, who knows what else he could have done.
Right.
But
I mean, he managed to get away with this one for 30 years.
Well, and like that lady you saw said, people loved him.
Right.
I mean, it's not like everybody was all of a sudden thinking, oh, yeah, he had a weird vibe. Like,
right.
So
She said
just loved him.
No one else. Yeah.
So I don't know.
It leaves you feeling a little bit weary of other people, I think.
Lock your doors.
Lock your doors.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm glad we have one with a definitive ending, but what a horrifying definitive ending.
Horrifying. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking.
It's so amazing, though, that, like I said before, the technology changes and advancements just make a huge difference for all these cases.
We can finally have answers and closure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like we'll start to see more of this as time goes on and technology gets better. And I hope we do.
I hope so, too.
Yeah. I mean, if we had been covering this case in 2018, it would have been as a cold case or an unsolved case.
Yeah.
It's not that long ago.
Right.
So we'll keep an eye out and see what his sentence is in March. Maybe do an update then.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening. We are so grateful for you. If you want to see the picture of what Parabon created versus what he looks like, we'll post that and all of our resources on our blog. You can get to our blog from crimeclueless.com. Please follow us on our socials on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Crime Clueless. We're the same on all of them. We love getting to connect and read your comments. If you get a minute, we would love if you would rate and review us either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. It really helps with the algorithms and everything. So
thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you
we're grateful.
Have any thoughts, let us know. Any stories you found you want us to look into, let us know too.
Yeah, we would love your case suggestions. Well, we're grateful for you. Remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murderers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.